Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Sadida Amir from Department of Pediatrics, Independent Medical College. Today's topic of discussion is fulminant hepatic failure. First of all, we will discuss the scenario. A 9 years old boy present with jaundice for the last 10 days. He is having impaired consciousness. He has fever and vomiting. On examination, there is ascites. He is in coma. On investigation, there is hypoglycemia and deranged liver function test. About the definition, acute liver failures refer to the rapid development of severe acute liver injury with impaired synthetic function and encephalopathy in a patient who previously had a normal liver or had well compensated liver diseases. About the hyperacute fulminant hepatic failure, when there is development of encephalopathy within 7 days of onset of jaundice. It is defined as acute when there is development of encephalopathy within 2 to 28 days of onset of jaundice, and subacute case is depends upon the development of encephalopathy within 5 to 56 weeks of onset of jaundice. Regarding the etiology of acute fulminant hepatic failure, mostly it is caused by hepatitis A virus. Hepatitis C virus does not appear to cause a significant number of acute fulminant hepatic failure. Other viruses which cause the acute fulminant hepatic failure is Delta virus and co-infection or superinfection, hepatitis E, Epstein-Barr virus, varicella and CMV. Toxins. Among the toxins, acetaminophen are notorious most common toxin that is associated with fulminant hepatic failure, but when it is taken in a large doses when attempt to commit suicide. Fungal toxins, isoniazid and halothane may be a causative toxin leads to fulminant hepatic failure. Vascular disorders, Budd-Chiari malformation and veno-exclusive disorders and ischemic hepatitis is also an underlying cause of fulminant failure. Among the metabolic disorders, Wilson's disease, acute fatty liver of pregnancy and Reese syndrome is the cause of fulminant hepatic failure. Other disorders, it may include heat stroke, malignant infiltrations of the liver, sepsis, and autoimmune hepatitis. Clinical presentation of acute fulminant hepatic failure include jaundice, hepatic encephalopathy, fetal hepaticus, apraxias, and signs of chronic liver diseases. But exact definition of fulminant hepatic failure includes there is biochemical evidence of acute liver injury, duration is less than 8 weeks, in the presence of no evidence of chronic liver disease, hepatic based coagulopathy defined as growth hormone time of more than 15 seconds and INR of more than 1.5. Investigation which we do in patients with fulminant hepatic failure includes blood CP, urine complete examination, LFTs, PTA, PTT, RBS, paracetamol if there levels, if there is history of intake of paracetamol, hepatitis profile, CMV and Epstein-Barr virus serology. Ferritin level, alpha-1 antitrypsin level, ceruloplasmin level and the autoantibodies. All these investigations help us to know the etiology of acute fulminant hepatic failure. Microbiology, definite requirement of blood culture and sensitivity, urine culture and sensitivity, ascitic fluid routine examination. Radiology include chest X-ray, abdominal ultrasound, Doppler ultrasound and CT brain. Neurophysiological include EEG and the evoked potentials. Complications of fulminant hepatic failure include encephalopathy, sepsis, GI bleeding, cerebral edema, acute kidney injury, pulmonary disorders and the metabolic disorders. Now we will discuss the complications individually. Hepatic encephalopathy is a major complication of acute fulminant hepatic failure and it is The underlying cause is directly related to increased production of ammonia from nitrogenous substances within the gut lumen. These patients may be present with cerebral edema. Cerebral edema is present in 80% of patients with grade 4 encephalopathy. The underlying mechanism was not clear, but there is a hypothesis. It includes the osmotic derangements of astrocytes, and there are changes in the cellular metabolism and alteration in the cerebral blood flow. The consequence of cerebral edema leads to raised intracranial pressure, but it is very important to manage and interpret the clinical findings of raised ICP. It includes hypertension, bradycardia, and irregular respiration, which is referred as a Cushing's triad. For the management of cerebral edema, we have to monitor the ICP, that is raised intracranial pressure. There are four types of catheter available. Just you have to know the names of these. It may be in the form of epidural catheters, subdural catheters, parenchymal catheters, or intraventricular catheters. This diagram which shows the different types of catheters, the place where it can be placed. Treatment of raised intracranial pressure in patients with grade 4 encephalopathy is important. Before an ICP monitoring is placed, and coagulopathy should be corrected. Three parameters which we will consider for the management of intracranial pressure: intracranial pressure measurement, cerebral perfusion pressure, and cerebral oxygen consumption. The goals of therapy is to maintain the raised intracranial pressure. The level should be maintained between 20 mm of Hg and CPP above 50 mm of Hg. Overhydration can be prevented in patients with raised ICP. The head of the patient bed should be elevated up to 30 degrees. However, bed elevation can also reduce the cerebral perfusion. Thus, patient should remain supine if the CPP falls below 50 mm of Hg with bed elevation. If no response or relapse is noted, then there is a role of hyperosmotic mannitol. It should be administered IV bolus and then followed repeated if needed. If no response or relapse is noted after mannitol, then there is a role of giving phenobarbitones, or it may be a requirement of dexamethasone, but its safety is not proven in patients with acute fulminant hepatic failure. In cases of seizures, there is a role of prophylactic phenytoin in patients with fulminant hepatic failure. In most of the patients with acute fulminant hepatic failure, they have acute renal failure. 30 to 50% of the patients develop fulminant hepatic failure, and it is more common in patients with acetaminophen intoxication. Treatment required for acute renal failure. It requires the identify and treating the infections and avoiding the use of nephrotoxic agents. Patients with acute liver fulminant hepatic failure, there are increased chances of infections and sepsis. It needs the aggressive approach for the diagnosis and treatment of infections. This includes the low threshold for obtaining frequent blood, urine, and sputum cultures and diagnostic radiologies, and performing a diagnostic paracentesis, because these patients are more prone for infections, particularly the infections of respiratory tract and the urinary tract. Role of prophylactic antibiotics is controversial in patients, but in patients, if there is an advanced disease and you are suspecting there is some infection, then empirical broad spectrum antibiotics can be given. Metabolic derangements include hypophosphatemia, hypoglycemia, and alkalosis is more common, which should be managed. Hypoglycemia is corrected. Hyponatremia is more frequently seen with patients with subfulminant hepatic failure. Tissue hypoperfusion leading to enhanced release of antidiuretic hormone and impaired renal function combine the effect and leads to free water excretion. These will reduce the excretion. Hypophosphatemia is especially common in patients with acetaminophen-induced acute liver failure and those with intact renal functions. Coagulopathy prophylactic administration of fresh frozen plasma is not recommended in patients, but if these patients having an active bleed, then there is a role of fresh frozen plasma in settings with active hemorrhages or prior to any invasive procedures. There is a role of factor 7 in patients with coagulopathy, which will normalize the serum prothrombin level and control the bleeding in these patients. Pulmonary complications like pulmonary edema and pulmonary infections are common. About 30% of the patients develop this, but extremely important is to keep an eye on positive and expiratory pressures in patients with liver failure. A number of specific interventions have been studied but unhelpful in patients with acute liver failure is not. Glucocorticoids increase the risk of sepsis, but it can be in patients those having autoimmune hepatitis as an underlying cause of fulminant hepatic failure. New approaches which is available and under trial: artificial hepatic assistance devices, extracorporeal assistance devices. There are new approaches regarding the liver transplantation studies. There is xenotransplantation of liver. Only therapy proven to improve patients' outcome is orthotopic liver transplantation, which is associated with 1 year survival rate of greater than 80%. It is in contrast to patients with fulminant hepatic failure who are managed with supportive medical therapy alone, in whom survival is much lower. Thank you.